Welcome, everybody, to the Right Habit podcast. I'm so happy you're here with me and Andrea because Andrea and I are going to talk about the importance of intuition for creativity and for life. So, this is not to be missed for anyone writing a book or anyone in big life transitions and transformation phases. So, Andrea Leigh, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Andrea, you are an intuitive coach. You are soul led. You are a spiritual mentor. And you've built your business that way after a different career. Maybe we could start with you just explaining what an intuitive coach is so that everybody knows what it is that you actually do.
Essentially, what intuitive coaching is that I use my skills and modalities as a coach, but from a very, very intuitive perspective. So I tap into my guides, I tap into my clients' guides, I tap into the energy that's all around. And so sometimes I'm pulling information out of the ethers or thoughts or sounds or things like that out of the intuitive realm rather than just basing on what you and I or my client and I have spoken about. So some things that are unsaid come to the table as well. My focus in coaching is really to look at, where people have blocks, and a lot of these blocks are around beliefs a lot of the time. We can bring those beliefs forward or uncover those beliefs a lot of the time. They're not even known, and just start to play with what would that look like if that wasn't here. And that can be a very transformative experience for a lot of people.
Mm, it sounds so exciting, and I like the woo of it as well.
Yeah, me too.
It sounds like you are listening sort of with your ears and obviously your training as a coach, but also you're listening energetically, seeing things that others wouldn't notice. Tell me, what kind of people do you work with? What sort of people come to you?
Primarily, I work with women, and a lot of times these women are in the second half or the later stages of life, going through transition. Maybe their kids are growing up, or there's physiological and emotional changes going on. Quite often, it's women who have kind of lost where they're at in life, who know that there's something more and have been in these roles of, taking care of family and growing a career, and all of the things are taking care of a house, whatever it is. And then they get to this point and they're like, wait, what about me? I've kind of lost myself in all of life. And I think that's a really beautiful place. It's a really uncomfortable place, but it's also a really beautiful place because we get to really dig into, the conditioning of why we've been doing what been doing and what's gotten lost under all of that. Because quite often there's a whole beautiful essence under there that is like, we know it's there, but it hasn't had a chance to come out.
Yeah, I feel like you're coaching people like me. And interestingly, I do feel there's an overlap because I also coach a lot of women at different ages and also some men, but a lot of them are overworked women, maybe going on towards perimenopause. Some still have young kids, especially if you're, academic professor, your kids might have come a bit later.
Mhm.
Maybe you are also taking care of parents already. So this is a spot where the whole idea of this is how my life will work out and this is how my career is going to be doesn't really fit anymore. It doesn't work out. You just find yourself stressed out, burned out, and starting to wonder, can I do it differently? Because this is not how I want to spend the second half of my life.
Mhm.
In my case, people often they come to me because they then think I want to change myself and I want to write a book. And that is sort of my entryway into that creative, I want to own something. And in my case, it tends to be around writing just because I'm a book coach. But I feel, that I think this is when a lot of, especially women, start asking the bigger questions and think about, well, I've done all of this up until here. And where do I go now? And what can I tap into to make it exciting again and joyful? Because that just gets lost. What does a session with you feel like? Is it like a psychic medium? Do you have a crystal ball? What is going on?
There have been sessions where I have had small windows into mediumship, like I have felt somebody for that person on the other side. Typically, that's not my go-to. We would start with a meditation. I always like to ground in first. And as we're grounding in, I typically ask the other person to think about something that they want to talk about. And maybe it's that thing that they had already thought about, and maybe something new comes in for them. That just kind of starts the thread. And as I'm asking questions, I'm also asking these questions to spirit as well, to the guides. So I'm hearing my client's words and I'm taking all of that into account, but I'm also listening between the lines. Sometimes I see words like I'll just see a word like guilt floating, and then I can ask that person like, okay, there's something about guilt here. Like, tell me what is this guilty feeling that is sitting, and that hasn't even been spoken about yet. Or I will just keep hearing a question to ask. And so it comes to me in visuals, it comes to me in audio, and sometimes we end up what feels like way off topic. Somebody might come to me and say, I really want to talk about my career. I'm really curious about that. Like, can we unpack that a little bit? And what ends up being talked about is the relationship with their mother. But it all comes back around. It's like what's underneath the surface. And I think this has been something that has always been really present for me all of my life is what's underneath that. Like, yes, okay, your stomach hurts. What's underneath that? Okay, what's underneath the reason why your stomach hurts? Like, let's keep digging back
Mm.
further because it's never what's on the surface.
What is then the next step?
Quite often when we hit something, like I said earlier, it's a belief. It's like the belief that I'm not smart enough or that I'm unlovable or whatever that core belief is. I'm not sure if you know the work of Byron Katie. Have you heard of
I
Byron
do.
Katie? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Byron Katie has it's 4 questions. And I do use these sometimes because it's very powerful. When we hit the belief, it's first of all, is that true? Like, can you really sit there and say that that belief is true? And then how does it feel to think that thought? Because quite often that belief is not one that is self-serving. And so like, oh, that feels really yucky
Mm.
to think that thought. And then what would you be without that thought? And then there's a world of possibility there. There's a huge world of possibility. And so there's an opportunity to kind of reverse or turn the thought around. And when we can dive into that space of like, what would life be like without that thought? Then we really start to move into this place of expansion. And this is where I find the authenticity of people really come out. Because if I were able to sit in that space of I am smart, I'm really smart. And if I was really smart, here's all of the things, which are really often all of our dreams. All of our dreams are
Mhm.
sitting on the outside edges of this belief that is keeping us small and holding us back. And because those dreams are soul led, they're heart led, they're really this like beautiful place of flourishing, that energy alone can help to kind of break that belief.
Oh, I just love that. Actually, when you were talking about Byron Katie and the work, the 4 questions to reframe your
Mhm.
limitations, this is exactly the module in the 90-day accelerator this week.
Oh my
That
gosh.
people are getting. And earlier today, I was just driving the kids to school, and it's frantic and hectic. And I was just wondering what made me change my life, getting out of academia, starting to become a book coach. And I remember the thing that made me do it or that gave me the strength was what else could I do that really lights me up if I wasn't so stuck in this?
Yeah.
And that is what moved me forward. So it's really interesting that you say exactly that right now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think the spirits are already talking
they
in
are.
some weird ways.
Especially as I'm going to say in the stages of perimenopause, which is a lot of who my clients are, there's this sense of overwhelm. And so that answering the question of like, who would I be underneath all of this? Who would I be without this thought? Who would I be? It's not even available. And so I have developed this new process that I call the Sacred Audit, which is we take three areas of life and we really audit them and make it so, so simple to realize that if I just did this one thing, like here's
Mhm.
all the things that are not working, and that feels like, oh God, I can't fix all 10 of those things. But if we could just focus down to one thing and start doing one thing differently, that it would affect all these other nine areas of my life.
Mhm. What would be a typical area that you would look at?
I do this in three phases. So the first phase, we look at the foundations of life. And so the foundations of life could include anything like career, relationship, family, health, wealth, all of those kind of things that we would typically like say makes up our life. And we audit those down to see like, okay, maybe wealth is not working and maybe relationship is not working and maybe my personal growth is not working. And so we can look at all of those things and say, if I just focused on this one thing, and of course, this is all done through process. If I just focused on, I'm really, really, really unhappy in my career and I can't quit my job because that money is dependent, or my family is dependent on that money. But I really, really, really want to start exploring these other areas of life. So even just that fine tuning of saying like, okay, I'm going to take a course in the evening to maybe just start to dip my toe in a different direction of where I want to go. There, they become happier, their relationship becomes better, their patience starts to level out, their parenting improves. There's now a new area of income that could come in potentially. And so we can start to hone in on just one little area within the foundations of life. The second phase, we do the same thing, but it's on values. So we look at the value system, which could be anything from integrity, authenticity, creativity, all of the values that we feel are important to us. We do the same kind of thing. We audit it all down. What's working? What's not working? Where can we focus our attention? And then in the third phase, we work on, I've called them archetypes in the program, which are essentially the roles we play: mother, father, daughter, provider, caretaker. And we audit all of those down to say, here's what's working, here's what's not working. And it's not to say that we have to give those roles up or that there's anything wrong with those roles, because a lot of the times we can't. This is life, this is reality, but how can we fine tune them?
Have
Mhm.
you tried this on yourself?
So, yes, I have done this on myself. And what really became clear for me was my desire to stay connected with this spiritual realm, my spiritual health, my spiritual growth, my spiritual intentions. I realized in this that if I really continue to focus on this area, then I don't have to control things anymore, because I think I was trying to control too many pieces of my life, you know? And if I really, really rooted myself deeper and deeper into my own spirituality, and for those people who are listening out there that spirituality feels like a tricky word, we're not talking religion here. You can call it God, you can call it the universe, you can call it spirit, you can call it whatever you want. Everybody has a different word that feels good for them. But for me, it is God, and it is being able to really see God as my partner in life, that he's the CEO. He can make the appointments. Of course, I have to show up and I have to take action in my life. It's not sitting back and doing nothing, but really being able to sit in that and root into that and have trust in something outside of myself. Have trust in something bigger than myself. Well, my health improves, my parenting improves, my career improves, my finances improve, my relationships improve, my friendships, like everything improves just from me focusing my attention on that one thing.
Man, I got goosebumps because I feel like we're on the same path or something.
Yeah.
With things like divorce and finances and neurodivergent children who need extra help. I've been frantically running around thinking I can solve everything with just doing more. And I realized I was just hitting walls and burning out, and still things weren't, I never had peace. And then I started trying to, I didn't even try, I just sort of, I basically, I had to surrender. At some point, you just, everything you've tried, it's not working. So you need, there's a moment where you just need to surrender and understand you're in the fog. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you
Mhm.
don't even have to control it all. And then what opened up was space. And now I've developed a bit of through automatic writing, and sort of that is my spiritual connection, just writing in trance and meditative state. I've developed more trust into there is something bigger than myself. Just laying myself in the hands of whatever you want to call it, nature, universe, doesn't matter. And just having a little bit of trust that I can handle things and things will work out for me, and I don't have to control and micromanage everything. I feel like when nothing else works, this, my guidance, my inner guidance, is always available to me,
Yeah,
and gives me a lot of
totally.
peace.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know that you weren't always an intuitive coach. I think you said to me, you worked in a, regular career, and you were also a book coach at some point. So my listeners are going to be quite interested in that.
Yeah.
I wonder what did lead you to become a book coach, and then what led you to move into this very intuitive coaching? Sort of just like give me a bit of that transformation that happened for you.
I grew up with this mentality of like, get a good job, get a pension, climb the ladder, do the things, like just get into a company and climb your way all the way to the top. That was kind of the mentality in my upbringing. And so that's the direction that I took. And there came a point in that where I would find that after about 2 years at a job, I was like, oh, this isn't working. I mean, I could stay here, I could keep climbing the ladder, but I'm really, really not happy. And it was kind of in my late 20s, I think I walked through the doors of a yoga studio. Never having been to yoga before, I was focused on the gym. I didn't think I needed yoga. I didn't think I wanted yoga. I wasn't flexible, but there was something, that intuitive sense that's just like, go, just try. And I went and I was terrible. I had to muscle my way through the class, which is very representative of the way I was trying to do life. I was trying to muscle my way through life, right? But after a while, I came to this point in yoga where I just felt this surrender come over me. And all of a sudden, it's like I wasn't moving my body was moving me. And oh, it brought so much emotion to the surface because there was a sense of liberation in that, and I was like, oh, oh, there's something more. Like that was kind of the entry point to like, okay, what's this?
Mhm.
There's something more out there. And from that point, I kind of started diving more into the healing arts. So I started studying holistic nutrition, I studied Reiki, I did my yoga teacher training. I bought a yoga studio. I did all of those things. I also had children in that time frame, so there was like a big gap of time that was focused on parenting, which was probably the hardest part. I
Mhm.
had children later in life. And so, I mean, I think I was 36 when I had my first and 37 when I had my first and 39 when I had my second. And I mean, I don't want to say that this is true for everybody, but in my experience, having children later in life was both a blessing and a challenge because I was already set in my ways. And so this new thing coming into my life, trying to dictate it, I had a really hard time with that. But also, I had the awareness through all of the personal work that I had done to say, I can try to parent the way that I was parented and continue to muscle my way through it, or I can reparent myself at the same time. And so that became my probably my biggest spiritual endeavor was really diving into that side of myself and realizing that I have to do things in a different way if I want to survive. I say that in air quotes.
I think any parent will understand the
Yeah.
thought of survival.
Yes. And that's really when I dove into the world of personal development and really understanding the mind, but the mind spirit connection, mind body spirit connection, deeper than just yoga, the physical aspect of yoga. I started diving more into like how does the mind work and learning about beliefs. And this is when I started studying coaching. And, that brought me up to a certain point. And then COVID hit. It was 2020. My marriage started to dissolve, and it's like everything all at once started to fall away. I had two young children, 2 and 4 years old. My marriage was dissolving. I didn't feel like my career dissolved because all of the yoga studios shut down. And so I was just kind of sitting there in this empty space, which, of course, I mean, that's challenging. It's so challenging, but it's also so good, right? It's so good to have that crumbling of everything because then there's an opportunity to look and see what we want to build out of that. And it just became a really beautiful portal for my own writing. And I just started writing and I loved it. And I would share my pieces of writing and other people loved it. And then people started asking me if I could help them write things, and I did, but I realized that I needed to study this, so I started studying like developmental editing and all of the things, and it's just a portal that opened without me even trying to open it. What ended up coming from that was a woman that I had met maybe 3 years prior. She contacted me and she said, I really want to write a book, but she's a very, very busy professional and didn't have time to write it. And so she asked if I would write her book for her. And so for a year, we sat together and we would meet once a week and she would just download verbally all of this information and we would kind of go chapter by chapter and I would then spend the week listening back to that recording and writing it for her, which was a really amazing experience. It gave me a lot of know-how of how to write a book. And so I continued to work and practice and study in that. And by the end of it, it was a huge accomplishment, 86,000 words, and
Wow.
also gave me the realization that this isn't what I want to do. I want to teach other people how to do this. I don't want to, I mean, the love of writing is a beautiful thing and it's a beautiful gift for a lot of people. And I just really wanted to empower other people how to do that. And so I flipped the script and started coaching other people on how to write. And I realized that there was a bit of a sneaky motive underneath it for me because I really my audience was women writing memoirs. And the sneaky motive underneath it for me was this coach that wanted to come out, not just a book coach, but like I wanted them to be able to learn from their stories as they were writing their stories instead of being stuck in the story. And while that happens naturally, I think it just gave me this realization of like, this doesn't necessarily have to happen through a book. Like we can just rip the mask of book coach off and just say like, hey, let's transform your life coach kind of thing. And so that's when I shifted more into this intuitive coaching and intuitive realm. And
Ah, totally resonates. We had children at a similar age, you and I. Also the marriage stuff. Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. I have one, not going to call her a memoirist because she did write it as autofiction. So it became a novel, but it was based on her life. The book is called Seven Lives. And just seeing this woman so accomplished in her career, getting the catharsis and understanding and reframing and sort of going through the phases of her life for the purpose of then, injecting life into her characters. That is The juicy stuff. I love words. I love creating beautiful chapters and the flow for the reader. And I've been trained, like, I've been overtrained in journalism, academia, masters in creative writing. But this part of the human being is what makes it so beautiful to be a book coach. And there are, actually, I'm more of a writer's coach or author coach rather than a book coach because some people really just love words. They want to be an editor and not really talk to people. Totally understood. And for me, it's I'm doing it because this is how I select my clients. I want to work with people who are going to have a transformative journey through writing a book. Have you ever, other than the sort of partnership book that you did with this person, have you written your own book at some point?
No, I haven't. It I have chapters that
Mhm.
are written, and I have a lot up here. And yeah, I have had a lot of messages lately that it's time to start that again. Yeah, I think there was a different phase of life that had to happen first because when I first started writing it, it was really about this period of going through divorce and having children and how that really encouraged me to dive into my personal and spiritual growth. And that part is still important, but there was an end piece that needed to happen first. And I think that end piece was really just about, and it happened through experience. It happened through, yeah, one main experience, but different experiences as well of what really diving into, yeah, my worth, my own personal worth, that I didn't see that. I didn't see it the same way that I see it now, even 3 years ago. And so there's really been a huge shift that has happened that feels like, okay, there's a conclusion now. The story has something to sit on. And so,
Mm,
yeah, maybe it's time to
interesting.
again.
I'm super intrigued.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
actually curious about when we were talking last time about the program
mm.
that you have starting in January. I was like, that could be a really good, that could be really good timing.
We can talk some more. There's definitely
Yeah.
stuff coming. You know, this is around the time when people are thinking about, well, what would be the theme of 2026? Because
Mhm.
it's November. You're not yet in the Christmas stress period
Yeah.
and the, January hustle, but you are just in this, moving towards that. And I've been in the last week or so actually just thinking about my Black Friday offer. But then I thought, what if Black Friday was really the doorway to what happens in 2026? So rather than selling a quick course for like half price that that's just been sitting around on the shelf, what if I could really tune into what I want to do in 2026? And then, you can see I'm smiling now and because I started thinking, well, there's this whole year I could really shape something. So I don't know if that's what you do around this time of year, but I'm certainly thinking about this book that I'm writing. I'm thinking about the programs and how to empower others and who to focus on as well. Really honing in on what clients I want to work with to be feeling like, oh, I want to enter this sacred space and like bring forth these words and the magic and sort of how to tap into that takes a little bit of diving deeper into yourself and what, because we can get so easily caught up in, okay, I've got my business strategy, I've got my funnels, and this, I need to make this much money to make it work.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting how that seems to happen. For me, that seems to happen twice a year. Of course, there's January. Everybody's like, first start, January. And if we think about it seasonally, like January is really like we're wintering. And
mm-hmm,
so I really like it's like the audit, right? Like what are we doing that's not working? And so what
mm-hmm,
can I kind of pare back on or reassess? And then springtime is then this really beautiful, like, okay. There's then for me that feels like more of a time of emergence. But
mm-hmm.
I think writing can be a very wintering thing to do because as we're writing, we're always taking inventory and we're always having realizations. Like writing is, I think, a very, very magical place for intuition to come out. And intuition is something that everybody has, Don't sit there and say, I'm not intuitive. Like you are. We just need to find the tools that help that to come out. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've written something and then look back at what I've written and been like, wow, that's, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
really beautiful tool for assessment as well.
I think it's really important for writers to tap more into intuition.
Hmm.
Yes, you want to plan out the outline, that's fine. And you can plan out your chapter and topics. And I've done all that with lots of clients sitting down and just sort of, the post-its, the whiteboard. It's exciting. But also sometimes you overplan. And then when you've planned it all out, you're sitting there with this perfect outline, and then you need to start writing. But at that point, there's
Hmm.
already there's this pressure. There are these buckets and containers where things should go, but maybe top of your head is something that would belong in chapter 17, end of the chapter, and that wants to come through, but you feel like, well, but I ought to write the introduction now. And often that can really just hinder the whole process. It's just like with life. If you have a certain way of this has to happen this way, and then it doesn't, and then you can't move forward.
I used to get my clients, we would do the outline. Of course, it's necessary. It has to
Hmm.
happen. What do you want to write about? What are the chapters? How we blah blah blah, all of that. And then I would get it all printed up for them so they're like, "Okay, great. I have something that I can launch off of. Perfect, necessary." And now throw that all out the window. Like, what? And I would tell people that, like,
Hmm.
don't rely on this. Yes, it's there to fall back on, and now you have a starting point, but don't let that control the writing because you're gonna get stuck. And so just let it come. And if you find yourself off track, don't consider it off track. You've actually found the right path.
I think when you make an outline or you write down the idea and themes, it gives you a sense of, it's great to have a brain dump always, but also it gives you a
Hmm.
sense of security. You feel like,
Hmm.
okay, I know where the path is going. And then it's really hard to not fixate on that. And that's exactly what I'm trying to figure out for my clients, because I we are great at making outlines. I have a little program, the Book Spark, where we just get from idea to outline. But then actually, I would rather for them to say, that's great, park it. And now let's do some automatic writing, intuitive writing, and just let it come out in the way it wants to come out. Because that outline is somewhere in the subconscious. It's not gonna go away. It's not gonna, it doesn't, you don't need it for your writing sessions.
Yeah.
Let it come through. And that switch from the planning that gives you this confidence and the, excitement, then into, and now let's take a step back and see what comes to you. I think that is what I'm also learning myself in life. We do have, it's always a ping pong between being rational and logic, but then letting go. It's like a constant sort of expansion and then a little bit of sorting. And that is basically, I'm probably an intuitive writing coach now that I
Yeah,
think of it.
absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard. This is all the writers that I work with. And even I'm a writer, I have a writing partner. So we are chatting about issues. That is really what gets you to the finish line, to understand this process and hone it for yourself rather than following the recipe, the formula, the boxes. It's just, I've not met a lot of people that can work like that. Some
Hmm.
maybe can, but they don't tend to come to me.
I have this visual of, there's the outline, all of the titles of all of the chapters and a numbered 1 through 24 or whatever it is. And then the visual is all of the written titles being dumped into a swimming pool.
Hmm.
And then diving into the swimming pool and being like, oh, okay, I'm gonna pull this one out. And so they're all jumbled up. They're all swimming in the mix, but they're not necessarily in order anymore.
Hmm.
And so they're there and they're the foundations and they're the pieces that we want to work with for sure, but maybe they're not going to happen exactly the way we thought they were, and we can just dive into the pool and pick out what is closest to
Hmm.
us in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, I really hope all the writers who are listening and the creatives and content creators and coaches are taking this on board.
Mhm.
It sounds easy and completely true to me, but then doing it in practice is not so easy, I think.
Yeah.
But I love that image of the swimming pool. When you said that, I
Hmm.
saw a rainbow. I saw a rainbow from the outline over into that beautiful pool and all the sparkles, right? Sort
Yeah.
of, it's not you need to harshly let go of the outline and then
Nope.
jump into the pool. It's more like, hey, there's this beautiful transition, which then
Mhm.
makes the sort of wholesome writer. We are totally riffing here on
Yeah. I love it.
on stuff, and yes, but I don't know. So this is so just like anyone listening, I just want you to notice what came up for the listeners, right? What visuals, because this is a very intuitive conversation, and I just wonder what would come up for people when they are listening. And already, hopefully, they are tuning in, expanding, opening up, breathing maybe more deeply through
Mm.
what we are talking about and sort of like spinning from one thing to the next. And that is how creativity and how personal transformation can work in such a beautiful way.
Yeah. Creativity doesn't come in a linear way. Creativity is it's the gold that comes out of the mess. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. If we try to control creativity, it's not creativity anymore. We're no longer creating.
Mm-hmm.
And so there has to think about when you have your most brilliant downloads in the moments you fall asleep, just before you fall asleep or in the shower or like they don't come when we're trying to have them, like, oh, I need to think of the outcome for this, or how is this going to unfold, and the downloads don't come when we're trying to funnel the downloads in. They come when we're doing something completely neutral, and that because there's spaciousness then for that to come
Mm-hmm.
in. And yeah, there has to be this balance between getting all of our thoughts together, but also continuing to keep this space open for creativity to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let it be messy.
Yeah. I agree. And also, it's not easy. If when you just
Nope.
said, let it be messy, I already felt like, no, it shouldn't be messy. It's so interesting because like, I know how it works. And then there's this, yeah, there's the layers underneath,
Hmm.
wanting something different, wanting to control.
Have you ever heard, I believe it's in Elizabeth Gilbert's book called Magic. She talks about, it's not her that she's talking about, it's somebody else that she's talking about the poem where this woman was working out on the fields and she felt this poem coming, like from afar over the hill. She felt this poem coming and she knew that she had to run back to the house and grab her pen and write the poem down before it blew through her. And she got to the house and grabbed her pen just in time to write the poem down. But just as the poem came through here, it came out on the paper backwards. Have you ever
No,
read that
I
or
don't
heard
remember
that?
that
Yeah.
part.
It's like creativity comes in just these moments that, and we just have to grab them in whatever way we can while they're here. And
Hmm. Some of my writers are writing the conclusion first. Yeah,
mhm.
so sort of
Yeah.
the thing where the character ends up, or where in if it's a self-help book, sort of. And I actually did something like that with my most recent book as well, where the conclusion came fairly soon. Maybe just my inner guidance wanted me to know, no matter how hard the path is to get there, this is where you'll be in the end,
Yes.
which is
There's a
really nice
landing
too.
point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder what's next in your journey, because we are always on a journey. You just talked about maybe you're going to start a book. We talked about 2026. I wonder if there's anything you want to share from, tapping into your own guidance and intuition, what you feel like there's something on your journey that's coming that you
Mm.
can taste, you can smell. There's a hint if you're happy to share.
Absolutely. This is something that I'm just starting to realize and bring into the world is really this realization of working with women in perimenopause. We talk about brain fog, and I don't have the resilience, and my stress feels higher, and I feel more emotional, and all of the things. Like, what is that all telling us on a spiritual level? We can talk about science for sure, and we can put facts behind it of what all of the things are happening. But what I really believe is happening is that our bodies, our psyche, our spirits are coming into this place of, can I swear?
Go ahead.
Are no longer being able to handle bullshit. We put down the bullshit shovel. So this is again where this process came in of the sacred audit of like, let's trim what's not working in ways that we can. And that doesn't mean that we have to put everything down. It doesn't mean we have to leave our marriage. It doesn't mean we have to leave our job. It doesn't mean that we, XYZ. But how can we do it in a really sovereign way where we're not overgiving of ourselves to the point of self-abandonment? This stage of life is really teaching us to fine tune where we're putting our heart and soul and attention, and we can have a really, really, really exciting, beautiful second half of life if we start to make these shifts.
This is often a time where you stop and you wake up and you think about, well, what actually excites me and where can I go when I'm not constantly burnt out?
Yeah,
Because there is
exactly.
so much more, so much joy to be had. And I'm also relearning that myself. If people want to find you and maybe they got really excited and interested in the sacred audit that you're offering, where
Mhm.
would they go? What would be the easiest to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the easiest is my Instagram page. That's where I'm most active. It's I am Andrea Leigh. All of my links are there. That would be the best place.
Awesome. So we'll link that in the show notes. For anybody wanting to go deeper into their intuition. And I think actually all the writers listening, all the authors, this would be just brilliant because it's not just going to transform your life, just in quotation marks, but it will really also open up the space if you're finishing a book or an
Mhm.
article or things like that. All of this becomes so much easier when you know what your purpose, your mission, what lights you up. When you know all these things and you explore yourself deeper, those things will flow and they will
Yeah,
be joyful and easy. And that's basically what we all want, right or not.
yeah. The spaciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Mhm.
you, Andrea. It has
Mm.
been just so, I don't know, I want to say soul feeding in a really good way. Total alignment in I think what we feel is important in life and in a creative life as well. So I'm so happy to bring this to my audience, and I hope they will all check out the Sacred Audit and all your offerings, especially for the new year for 2026. And yes, thank you so much for your time that you've given me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I was going to say nourishing as well, like soul feeding. This has been such a nourishing conversation, and I just love this connection that has begun between you and I over the internet. And yeah, it's beautiful, and I really do see how aligned you and I in so many ways and on the same life path. So thank you for this connection, and thank you for this opportunity.